Did Queen Elizabeth's sorcerer talk to demons? The room is freezing, lit only by a few flickering candles. For months, Queen Elizabeth's most trusted advisor, the brilliant John Dee, has been speaking with beings he is certain are angels. But tonight, the message shimmering from the depths of the crystal is different. It's a command so monstrous, so against everything he believes, that it will shatter his life, destroy his most important friendship, and make him question his own sanity. Was he really talking to messengers from God? Or had his obsessive hunt for divine knowledge thrown open a door for demons? Introduction. The story of John Dee is one of those that just doesn't seem real. It's the late 16th century, and England is a land of glorious contradictions. This is the Elizabethan era, a time of incredible exploration and savage warfare, of groundbreaking science and deeply rooted superstition. It was an age when the line between a laboratory and a magician's chamber was almost invisible. And right at the center of this world of spies, scholars, and adventurers stood John Dee. He was a mathematician, an astronomer, a navigator, and a philosopher. He was a personal advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, and a man who helped England chart its course on the world stage. He was even one of the first to champion the idea of a British Empire. But behind the public face of genius and influence, Dee had a secret obsession. He wanted to go beyond the limits of human knowledge and speak directly with God's angels. This obsession would lead him down a shadowy path of ritual magic and cryptic prophecies, and force him to make a devastating choice that would leave him ruined. This is the story of a man who reached for the heavens, but might have accidentally summoned hell. Section 1. The Queen's Philosopher. To understand how a man like Dee could get tangled up in the occult, you first have to understand just how brilliant he was. John Dee wasn't some fringe mystic working in the shadows. He was one of the most respected minds in Europe. Born in 1527, he was a prodigy who got into Cambridge University when he was just 15. His hunger for knowledge was bottomless. He traveled all over Europe, studying with the greatest thinkers of the day, like the legendary mapmaker Gerardus Mercator. His personal library at his home in Mortlake was the stuff of legend. It held an astonishing collection of books and manuscripts. Some estimates say close to 3,000 volumes, making it the largest private library in England, bigger than the collections at Oxford and Cambridge combined. It was a national treasure, a hub of learning where scholars and courtiers came to study everything from math and chemistry to code-breaking and philosophy. Dee was a true Renaissance man, an expert whose advice was wanted at the highest levels of power. His relationship with Queen Elizabeth I was especially close. He was her confidant before she even became queen. He'd once been arrested for treason for casting her horoscope, while her Catholic sister, Bloody Mary, was on the throne. When Elizabeth became queen, she remembered his loyalty and made him her trusted scientific and astrological advisor. It was Dee she asked to pick the most astrologically perfect date for her coronation in 1558. But Dee's influence went way beyond courtly astrology. He was a practical genius whose work directly shaped England's ambitions. He was a master of navigation, teaching sailors the advanced math they needed to cross oceans and explore the New World. But he didn't just want exploration, he wanted domination. He presented Elizabeth with a plan for a huge English colonial expansion, a global power he called the British Empire. In many ways, he was a visionary, a one-man think tank pushing England into a new age. This is the man at the heart of our story. Not a madman, but a respected, rational, and profoundly influential figure, which makes what happened next so baffling. Section 2. The Limits of Knowledge. So why would a man who had mastered almost every field of human knowledge turn to magic? The answer lies in his deep religious faith and an ambition that was off the charts. Dee wasn't looking for earthly power or riches. He was looking for a higher truth. He felt he'd pushed human knowledge to its absolute limit. He'd read the books, solved the equations, and mapped the stars, but the biggest questions were still unanswered. What was the divine language that Adam spoke in the Garden of Eden? What were the secret laws of creation? What was God's ultimate plan for humanity? He believed the only way to get these answers was to go straight to the source, the angels. And it's important to remember that in the 16th century, the line we draw between science and magic was blurry. Alchemy was a real scientific pursuit, the parent of modern chemistry. Astrology was the forerunner of astronomy. For Dee, trying to contact angels wasn't heresy. It was a logical, if unorthodox, next step in his scientific and spiritual quest. He thought he was attempting to create a grand unified theory of everything, a system that brought together the physical and the spiritual. He just needed a way to make the call. Dee was a brilliant thinker, but he was missing one key skill. He couldn't see spirits himself. He needed a scryer, a medium who could look into a crystal and relay messages from the other side. His search for the right partner would lead him to a man who would change his life forever. Section 3. The Scryer and the Stone. After a few false starts with other scryers, John Dee met Edward Kelly in 1582. And Kelly was a character straight out of the shadows, in many ways Dee's total opposite. While Dee was a respected court academic, Kelly was a shady alchemist with a very questionable past. Some stories even suggest his ears had been cropped, a common punishment for criminals and forgers. He was an occultist who claimed to have the gift of spirit sight, the one thing Dee needed more than anything. Despite his doubts about Kelly's character, Dee was hooked. Their partnership started almost immediately. The dynamic was simple. Kelly, the scryer, would stare into a consecrated crystal shoestone or a polished black obsidian mirror. As visions and voices appeared, Kelly would describe them, and Dee, the careful scholar, would write down every single word in his diaries. He noted the date, the time, the names of the angels, and every message they supposedly sent. Kelly claimed he was talking to some of the most powerful archangels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. At first, Dee was cautious. He knew that demons could disguise themselves as angels of light, and he performed prayers and tests to be sure the spirits were from God. But Kelly's performances were just too convincing. He described glorious angels in stunning detail. One of the most frequent visitors was a spirit that appeared as a young girl named Madimi. Over time, Dee's skepticism melted away, replaced by the thrilling belief that he had finally done it. He was in direct communication with God's messengers. The collaboration between the famous scholar and the rogue alchemist was on, and it was about to unleash something the world had never seen. Section 4. Conversations with Angels. The rituals, which Dee called spiritual conferences, were deeply religious. They began with fasting and prayer to purify themselves for angelic contact. The room became a sort of temple. Dee used a special holy table covered in complex diagrams. On it were placed 7 sacred wax seals, the seal of the truth of God, a powerful symbol he believed was essential for the work. And in the middle of it all was the scrying stone, the gateway to the spirit world. As Kelly stared into the stone, an incredible amount of information began to pour out. The angels, speaking through Kelly, started to reveal the secrets of the universe. And most incredible of all, they revealed an entirely new language. They called it angelical, the celestial tongue spoken by Adam in paradise. Today, it's known as Enochian. And this wasn't just a few made-up words. The Enochian language came with its own unique alphabet, grammar, and syntax. Dee filled hundreds of pages with texts dictated in this language, along with the English translations. The angels delivered entire books through Kelly, including one filled with 49 tables of angelic letters. They also dictated 48 poetic verses, known as the angelic keys or calls. These keys, the angel said, were the invocations needed to unlock the secrets of the universe and command its spirits. Dee was overjoyed. He believed God had chosen him to receive this divine knowledge, a New Testament that would heal the bitter divisions of the Protestant Reformation and bring about an age of enlightenment. The angels told him their teachings could change the political map of Europe and even bring on the apocalypse. Armed with a sacred language and a direct line to heaven, Dee and Kelly felt they were about to change the world. Their ambition took them away from England and on a tour of Europe, looking for a powerful ruler to back their divine mission. Section 5. The cracks appear. In 1583, Dee and Kelly packed up their families and left for the continent. They traveled to the court of a Polish nobleman and then on to Prague to see the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who was famously obsessed with the occult. They hoped to find a leader who would listen to their angelic revelations and use them to reshape Europe. But their journey was filled with frustration and growing conflict. The angels' advice was often confusing, their political prophecies never came true, and they were running out of money. The pressure was building. It was during this time that the angelic messages began to get darker and stranger. The communications became more demanding. Kelly himself started to have serious doubts, fearing the spirits they were talking to were not what they seemed and were actually demons. Dee, always the faithful scribe, noted Kelly's fears but mostly ignored them, convinced he was on a divine mission. The relationship between the two men, already worn down by their travels and money problems, started to break. Then, in 1587, while they were in Bohemia, the spirits delivered their most shocking command. Kelly, his face pale after a long scrying session, told Dee about a new order from the spirit Madimi. The angels had decreed that the two men had to share everything, not just their knowledge or their money, everything, including their wives. This was the breaking point. Dee was a deeply pious man, and this command felt like a monstrous violation of God's law. His diary entry on the matter shows his absolute anguish. His young wife, Jane, who had never trusted Kelly, was horrified and reportedly collapsed weeping. But Kelly insisted, claiming the angels were just testing their faith. In the end, tormented but terrified of disobeying a direct order from heaven, Dee agreed. A pact was made, and according to a grim note Dee made in his diary, the act was done. This bizarre, scandalous event destroyed their partnership. The angelic conversation stopped almost immediately. The question that must have haunted Dee, and the one that hangs over this whole story, became impossible to ignore. What kind of angel would give such a command? Section 6. The Sorcerer's Ruin. The wife-swapping pact was the end of the road for them. Kelly, who was becoming a famous alchemist in his own right, split from Dee for good. In 1589, a tired and broken John Dee returned to England, his grand dreams in ruins. He came home to a nightmare. While he was away, a mob, stirred up by rumors that he was an evil sorcerer, had broken into his home. They had trashed his house, and worst of all, destroyed or stolen a huge part of his magnificent library, scattering a lifetime of learning to the winds. And it wasn't just his home that was in ruins. His reputation was too. His great protector, Queen Elizabeth, was old, and her court had moved on. The mood in England was changing, and the suspicion of magic that had always been there was now much stronger. Dee was no longer seen as the Queen's brilliant philosopher, but as a disgraced conjurer. He was given a minor post as warden of Christ's College in Manchester, but it was basically exile. When Queen Elizabeth died, King James I, a man with a pathological obsession with witchcraft and demonology, took the throne, and Dee's fate was sealed. He spent his last years writing letters to the new king, begging to clear his name of the charge that he had dealt with devils, but he was ignored. Forced to sell off his few remaining books just to support himself and his daughter, John Dee died in poverty and obscurity around 1608. The man who had advised a queen and envisioned a British Empire died a forgotten man, his grave now lost to time. His legacy, however, is a strange one. The system of divine magic he believed would enlighten humanity went underground, saved in his detailed diaries. Centuries later, those writings were rediscovered by occult groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and Dee's angelical language became a pillar of modern ceremonial magic, a tradition that is still alive today. The great Renaissance scholar in the end became the godfather of modern occultism. So we're left with the same haunting question. What was really happening in those darkened rooms with John Dee and Edward Kelly? Was Dee a truly pious man who managed to pierce the veil and speak with angels, only to receive a truth too terrible for the world? Was he a brilliant but gullible genius, cruelly tricked by a charismatic conman in Edward Kelly, who made it all up for his own benefit? Or is the truth far more sinister? Did John Dee, in his desperate search for heavenly knowledge, accidentally open a channel to something else entirely? To deceiving spirits and demons who disguise themselves as angels, playing a long, cruel game to destroy a good man? The historical record gives us no easy answers. The story of Queen Elizabeth's sorcerer remains one of history's most profound and disturbing mysteries. What do you think? Was Dee talking to angels, or was he tricked by something much darker? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy unraveling the greatest mysteries of history, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell for more.